Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here today. My name's Allison Jones, and I am the Membership and Development Events Coordinator here at the Missouri Botanical Garden. Before we get into today's program with Ann Corey, I just wanted to give you some reminders about some upcoming events and happenings that are going on at the garden. First of all, I think most of you have already heard that Chihuly will be returning to the garden this summer. And if you had a chance to walk around before the program or are gonna go on a walk afterwards, you might see some of the structure for the pieces in place that will start being installed very, very shortly. Chihuly during the day will open on May 2nd, and that will run through October. Daytime viewing of Chihuly is included with your garden admission. So if you're a member, your free number of entries, that includes Chihuly during the day. And then during the evening, beginning on May 10th with some member previews, we have Chihuly nights. So May 10th and May 11th, it will open to the public on May 13th. Those will be Thursday through Sunday evenings. You can view the sculptures lit and illuminated. In the evening, they'll have some live music, pop-up bars, and some other offerings during those, so make sure to get your tickets. You can use, if you're a festival level member, you can use those festival level benefits and get up to 6 tickets complimentary, and then the rest at the admission price. And members will save about $10 on tickets, so depending on the day you come, it's $10 to $15 if you are not a festival level member, just for the admission. And then speaker series wise, we have a few coming up. Later on this month, we have 2 of the Chihuly installers will be here in the auditorium doing a presentation. I do want to let you know that is sold out, but we are doing overflow. If you call that number on the back of your card, we can get you into overflow seating. And as space allows, if we have no shows, we can get you into the auditorium for that. The date of that program is April 25th, and we'll offer that twice, once at 11 a.m. and then at 7 p.m. And then in May, on May 23rd, we'll have Hilton Carter here. He will actually be next door in our Bear Event Center. It'll be our first member speaker series there. Hilton is a Baltimore-based plant stylist and decorator. He's got a line at Target. He has about 4 books that have been released now, so that should be a really wonderful program. We'll do a pop-up bar with STL Barkeep doing some botanical cocktails. Kemper Center for Home Gardening will be here to answer all of your house-related plant questions. And then Hilton will do a presentation and a style demo. And before I turn it over to our guests from the Herb Society, I just want to tell you a little bit more about Ann. Ann is the owner of the Kitchen Conservatory, a member of the Herb Society, and a self-professed cooking nut. For over 35 years, Kitchen Conservatory in Clayton has offered the finest kitchen tools and helped countless people learn to become better cooks with all of their cooking classes held each year. She's trained in kitchens in Italy, France, and across the United States, so we are very lucky to have her here. Then I'm going to turn it over to Barb from our Herb Society to tell you a little bit more about the herb sale coming up this month.
How many of you have heard Ann Corey speak? You're back for more. You just can't ever get enough of Ann, can you? I'm Barb Thinblum from the St. Louis Herb Society, and I'm here to plug our herb sale that's coming up the end of April 27th, 28th, and 29th. Fortunately, you all are members, so the best time for you to come is Thursday. At 5 o'clock, we open up. We will be in a tent out in the northeast parking lot, where you probably parked today, and it is free admission to get in. And with your membership, you get 10% discount, which is even better. We do everything but plant the herbs for you. We will be packed with thousands of plants. If you check our website, stlouisherbsociety.org, you will see a list of some of the plants, and you can start your shopping early and find out what herbs you want. Yes, you can go to Home Depot and some of the other places, but these are specialized herbs. We have, I think, 10 or 12 different basils and all kinds of different thymes and that sort of thing. And Ann can help you with some of the wonderful things that we can do with herbs. So Thursday from 5 until 8, best selection then. Friday is 9 to 5. And if we have anything left, we sell on Saturday. The last several years, we've had no Saturday sale. So by Friday morning, things look a little picked over. So come Thursday. I'll look for all of you. I have the wonderful pleasure not just introducing Ann, but introducing another member, Bruce Chalker, who's another prestigious member of our group, and he's going to tell you about our new publication.
Thanks very much, Barb. The Herb Society, in collaboration with Missouri Botanical Press, had a really exciting February, and some of you may know, February the 9th is the release of our new book, Herbs Around the Mediterranean. This book began really in February of 1941, and that's when the Herb Society was founded. We, like many other organizations around the country, had a problem, and the problem was that our treasured culinary herbs that used to be imported from the Mediterranean region were no longer available because of the war. And in particular, things like sage from Dalmatia, the east coast of the Adriatic, you simply couldn't sail a cargo ship around Italy during the war to get to the United States. And so people banded together to try and figure out how they could grow these things here in St. Louis. This particular event began in September of 2017. There was a class at the Kemper Center for Home Gardening, Missouri Botanical Adult Education class, called Knowing, Growing, and Cooking with Mediterranean Herbs. And that class began with a slideshow presentation, a big map of the Mediterranean. And around that map, we visited France, and then Italy and Greece, and all the way around the Mediterranean, and talked about some of the herbs, old favorites and their history, and new favorites. And then we had cooking and bread baking and all these good things you get in Herb Society classes. Liz Fathman, who was then the director of digital and print media at the Missouri Botanical Garden, heard about this class, and she decided this might make a really fun book for the garden to do. And so she approached the Herb Society and asked us to do a book. I did the original research, and then we passed it on to teams of the Herb Society members over the years. In the end, it went back to the Missouri Botanical Garden Press. They hired a wonderful young woman who was a designer, who did a fabulous layout and design. They contributed additional text, and as I said, it just came out on the 9th of February. There are over 126 herbs, detailed discussions, and there are over 200 herbs that are mentioned, cultivars and varieties. So you learn a lot of new ideas, we hope, and get some inspiration. The three, just mentioning kind of fun things to do, there are all kinds of new ideas, but please, in particular, if you ever take a chance to look at the book, my favorites, if I have to have favorites, get to Italy, think about Nepentella. This is an herb that grows in northern Italy. It has a taste cross between mint and oregano. It's great with mushrooms and artichokes and zucchinis and all kinds of great stuff. Whenever I see a recipe that calls just for parsley, I add an equal amount of Nepentella to it, and it makes it a really interesting and slightly different dish. It's also very well behaved. It's an ornamental, and it flowers beginning in July, goes all the way through November. It's beautiful flowers, and if you want to see it in its full glory, come later in the year. The south side of the old administration building, there's a raised bed. They're growing Nepentella and interspersing us with purple coneflowers. So it's a great mix of herbs and natives. Next herb you want to find around to Greece, please take a look at Greek oregano. Until 1976, in the United States, most of the oreganos here were pretty terrible, actually, not very tasty at all. Then a man named Arthur Tucker, who was at Delaware State University, decided if the Greeks had enjoyed fabulous oregano for thousands of years, it's about time that Americans could grow some decent oregano. So he brought in a species, oregano, Oregon vulgar, subspecies tyratum. Got a grower in New York to grow it for him. And now every herb sale you go to, or every plant shop, in particular the St. Louis Herb Study sale, you'll find what's called Greek oregano. And that's a really good oregano to have. The last herb on Palestine, the Far East, the Levant, Syrian oregano. And this is another oregano, fabulous flavor, no bitterness whatsoever. So if you like Italian cooking, you might want to try your Greek oregano. If you want Middle Eastern cooking, absolutely need Syrian oregano. It's available. And it also is the herb that, if in Arabic, there are groups of herbs that are culturally similar. It's called za'atar. This is the most famous of all the za'atar herbs, Syrian oregano. In the Bible, you'll find it. In Hebrew, there's another collective noun called azav, and so this is the azav of Leviticus. Grow it yourself, great herb, and it is mixed in with an herb blend, which is also named za'atar. And you can, if you haven't tried it already, do yourself a favor and enjoy the herb blend. You can get it from Ann Corey at the Kitchen Conservatory. It's on sale. And everybody in the Herb Society has multiple jobs. My other job is I'm the za'atar blender. So I can talk to you about that if you want to know. So please check out the book, continue your journey, visit North Africa, Egypt, Morocco, fabulous oregano in the Rif Mountains of Morocco. Go to Spain and please enjoy. Now I have my honor to turn it over to our very own Ann Corey.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to this talk today, where we're going to talk about ginger, which is not in the Mediterranean basin, but I feel as though in doing a talk about ginger, I should really be named Marianne rather than Anne. Maybe you all didn't watch Gilligan's Island. Anyway, ginger is a very versatile herb and really is across the world, and so interesting in its flavor and application, because it's used both sweet and savory in so many different cuisines. And ginger is dynamic. It's spicy. It's loud in a dish, and I think ginger can be a wonderful application in so many foods. When the British were in the 19th century in Malaysia, they came across a ginger plant that had a gorgeous red-topped flower. And it's because of that that they went back to England and started calling redheads ginger. And I want to point out, we've got a great ginger over here. Just fabulous red top. You could stand up and show it. It just looks great. But ginger has great applications all over. And we think of it in Europe, in European cuisine, we really think of it as a holiday spice. It's so part of our baked goods. And this little powdered vial of powdered ginger is what many of us grew up on in pumpkin pies and Christmas cookies that you would see it. And this came to Europe because ginger is a very tropical plant. It needs a hot, warm, humid climate, and it takes 10 months. So you may complain about the humidity in St. Louis, but we don't have 10 months of it. So it's very difficult to grow in St. Louis, although I do know people who have a container, keep it in a container and bring it in and out and can keep it alive as a perennial. But it never gets quite as big as you want it. So back when the Europeans were obsessed with the spices and of the tropics and imported so many of the spices from the tropics, this was very hard to import like this to Europe because of transportation. So they would harvest it, dry it, and powder it, and then this is what would come to Europe, is the ground powder of ginger. And that got used in so many different fabulous dishes. If many of you, probably like me, over the last weekend ate hot cross buns, ginger is an essential spice to that because it's part of that traditional old European taste of using these blends of exotic spices in baked goods, whether and I have some of these cookies. The speculoos cookies, which we all know because a lot of the airlines now serve the speculoos cookies as instead of crackers or pretzels on the airlines. It has a ginger taste to it. They also make that cookie butter out of it, which seems totally indulgent to me. And what is cookie butter? And then here's some ginger thins and ginger nuts, all kinds of cookies that are made with ginger. In France, they really don't use a lot of these spices, but there's one dish that they make in France that has the cinnamon ginger flavor combination. It's called pain d'espice, which means spice bread or spice cake. And if you think of the spice cakes that we grew up on, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, allspice, a little bit of clove, that's what we associate with our holiday spicing. But then what happened in the 17th century and 18th century is that Europe really turned away from the spicing, these tropical spices. We have these lingering things in the Christmas cookies, but you don't see it in their savory cooking. And what happened is that I think the spices became too abundant and too plentiful, and they weren't a luxury good anymore. They weren't exotic anymore because everybody had them all the time. So instead, and particularly you see it in France, they turned towards their homegrown flavors. And as such, cinnamon is, you never see it in French cooking, for instance, not even in their apple pie. They don't use cinnamon. In Italy, they don't have any culture of ginger in their cuisine. But the only place that really continued to use a heavy amount of ginger is England, and that is because the English, the British Empire, was in India, and they brought home the curry powder, which of course ginger is an essential ingredient in the curry powder. This is the St. Louis Herb Society own blend of all those wonderful spices to make a curry powder, and it is just a great, doing the plug for the Herb Society, just as a great plug to use in all kinds of things for the to add ginger to add that flavor to so many wonderful things. And of course, the Europeans have this wonderful tradition of gingerbread boys cookies, gingerbread girl cookies, gingerbread houses to build all these fanciful Christmas creations made out of gingerbread. I'm not sure anybody actually eats them, but and one of the things that there's such a thing as to take the gilt off gingerbread. And that's because the gingerbread houses used to be painted gold so that they would look a little bit fancier. And if you rubbed off the gilt, well, then you were tarnishing a product. And then throughout the rest of the world, the only other cuisine that really doesn't use a lot of ginger is Mexican food. You don't see a lot of that there. However, you see a great deal of ginger in Caribbean food, particularly in the jerk seasoning and spices. When I went over and got a whole bunch of ginger products to do a little show and tell here, one of the things I got was a ginger beer from Jamaica. Now, this is not beer. This is a soft drink, but they call it ginger beer because the Jamaicans are very heavy use of ginger. And as I gave this talk earlier today, and then somebody came up and pointed out that there's a cocktail called the Dark and Stormy, which is ginger beer with rum. And ginger and rum is a fabulous combination in baking to add that. They really go well together. And that's really the beauty of ginger, is how it blends with so many different things. And if we think about the ginger in the United States, we have combined ginger in many different applications that that are not not native to where ginger originally grows. For example, ginger maple is a good combination, and ginger does not grow where maple trees grow, but ginger and honey, ginger and molasses, all these stoned fruits that we enjoy in America, the peaches, the plums, the pears and apples, they blend very well with the flavor of ginger in both sweet and savory ingredients. And that is actually, I think, when I think of all the spices we have, there are very few spices that are so versatile both in savory applications and in dessert. And they taste well. And it's because ginger, it's got some heat. It's hot, but it also has this juicy sweetness to it. So it's just a good blending. Despite its loudness, its assertiveness, it blends well with so many different flavors to create a balance. So back to the Indians, the Indian cuisine of South Asia. That cuisine actually uses 45% of all the ginger grown in the world. That's how much they love and adore ginger. And obviously it's used in the curries and in the curry powder. But there's another application of ginger, which is chutney. And of course, the English were very good at producing Major Grey's chutney and selling it all over the world. Well, what is chutney? Chutney is fruit, and it can be any fruit. I mean, it can be mango like Major Grey's, but you can also make chutney out of any fruit that you want, with sugar and vinegar, ginger and garlic, and salt. 6 ingredients. You can make a chutney, stew it up. And what is the descendant of chutney? Ketchup. So that's all ketchup is. If you look at the bottle of ketchup, it says tomato ketchup. Because, of course, ketchup can be made, again, with any fruit. And what is it? It's those basic combination of ingredients. I'm not sure they're actually doing 57 varieties anymore because I think it's more sugar than anything else now. But traditionally, ketchup is the fruit, the sugar, the vinegar, the ginger, the garlic, the salt, and maybe some other spices too. But ginger being an essential ingredient for making a fabulous ketchup. But then where did ketchup develop to? Ketchup developed into our barbecue sauces. And when I think of ginger in the United States, I think of Southern barbecue. Whether it's St. Louis, Kansas City, Memphis, Texas, Low Country, Carolina, they all love ginger in their barbecue because ginger and molasses combine to make a great condiment for smoked meats. And that is, just proves how it's versatile and has gone into everywhere and is so pervasive in our cuisine and versatile in what we do. And when we think of, and of course, in the savory side of eating ginger, China is obviously an example. I don't think you can make a Chinese stir fry without ginger and garlic. Lots of it. So obviously they use a lot of it. The Thais with their Thai curries always include this flavor. Ginger has a cousin called galangal, which is similar, only more fibrous. And galangal is in every Thai curry you've ever eaten. The Koreans love ginger fermented because they put it in their kimchi, which is, think of it as spicy fermented sauerkraut with lots of ginger and chili peppers in it. And that is a great application of ginger. And then there are the Japanese who do their own specialty with ginger, which is pickled. And here's a jar of pickled Japanese ginger, which is known as gari, G-A-R-I. And gari is actually traditionally made from young ginger. So if you harvest the ginger, this is harvested at 10 months, but if you harvest it at 5 months, it's not so fibrous, it's more tender, and then you thinly slice it and put it in a pickling mixture of vinegar and sugar and salt. And what happens is the young ginger actually naturally turns pink. So the fact that the Gari is pink, there is a natural reason why it's pink. However, I do think they supplement by making it a little more pink than it is naturally. And if you want to create that at home, you add a slice of beet to your pickling mixture, and you'll get that pretty pink color on your Gari, your pickled sushi ginger, which is very refreshing to eat. But what I love is all the different applications of the ginger, because we cannot forget beverages. Ginger makes great beverages. I talked about ginger beer or ginger ale, the soft drink variety of it. I think the ginger ale we generally get doesn't have quite the ginger punch that some of the other brands have, because it can really vary in how gingery they are. But I do love, and this is probably our single most popular single product, which is the Republic of Tea Ginger Peach Tea. And many of you have probably had it. Republic of Tea is actually a local company, and this is their most favorite flavor. And they make it in every variety you can imagine: loose, bag, decaf, regular, white tea, green tea, red tea, you name it, they do it all on it. It's great iced tea or hot tea, and it has a flavor that people find irresistible on the tea. And then there is a company called the Ginger People, which they probably came up with that name because they didn't want to be ginger boys or ginger girls, so they said Ginger People. And they do a whole product line that's fabulous of prepared ginger products. But I was really taken with their ginger syrup, because it's probably a great way to boost up your Canada Dry ginger ale, to make it a little bit more gingery, is to add something like this to it, or just a regular black tea and make it a little bit more gingery to do that. And there are ginger liqueurs too that have come out where they have that great flavor of ginger, and that is just a way to do it. The other thing that's done with ginger, and the Ginger People company makes these products too, which are what the English calls stem ginger. And so this is stem ginger, where you take the ginger, peel it, and cut it into pieces, and then cook it in a sugar solution, equal parts sugar and water, and cook it till the ginger gets tender. And you can eat it like this. You can chop it up and add it to things, but you can also roll it in sugar so it's crystallized on the outside, which makes a wonderful candy to eat, and then it's not a sticky mess. It's a candy. I got a couple of questions about crystallized ginger in the earlier class, and crystallized ginger can be very difficult to mince up. And one of the audience pointed out that when you open the package first, it's soft and pliable and you can work with it. The problem is you have your jar of crystallized ginger in your cabinet for maybe several years, and you go back and it's quite dry to work with and a little bit harder to chop up. I then have to run it through the food processor with some sugar to kind of grind it up, because it can be so difficult to cut with just a knife. And then here, the English like their ginger so much. Here is a ginger preserves, like a ginger marmalade. That really packs a punch on your breakfast toast. But the beauty of ginger is how well it goes with so many different things. So some of the other things that I think are great ways to utilize the ginger flavor is in custard, whether it's an ice cream or a custard sauce or a creme brulee or something like that, where you would cut up the ginger and let it steep in the milk in order to extract the flavor of the ginger into your milk, and then strain it out and then use that to make a custard sauce. I think that is a wonderful flavor to come to because I think it adds so much with the dairy. The other way to use ginger that you may not be immediately recognizable is that it's a great combination with chocolate. And if you've ever had a chocolate flavored ginger, it's like a candy. It's wonderful. And one way to do that is to take crystallized ginger and dip it into chocolate. It's a good combination, maybe a surprising combination, because I think a lot of us think of ginger with fruit flavors, particularly citrus flavors, orange ginger, lemon ginger. They really blend well together. But of course, for the savory cooks, the Chinese and the South Asians, it's the combination of ginger garlic that is so spectacular in making food. And I don't have a jar of that today, but they actually sell in some of the Asian markets a jar, the Indians love this, which is ginger garlic paste. And it's a jar, and then all you have to do is spoon it out rather than grinding up your fresh ginger. However, I'm a fresh girl, so I want to talk about how do you buy ginger, how do you store ginger, what do you do with it? And so here's the first suggestion I have, which is go to a market where they sell ginger. I mean, yes, our major supermarkets all have ginger, but a lot of times it's picked over, it's not replenished very often, and what they have are little bits like this. And that's kind of a pain in the neck to deal with. You want to get, and a big piece of ginger is called a hand. This has been knobbed off a bit, but you can imagine that it can be a much bigger thing with pieces off of it. Ginger is not a root. Ginger is a rhizome, which means it grows underground laterally and produces shoots above ground, and then you have these rhizomes that you can work with. So the bigger the hand of ginger you get, the better for you in your kitchen. Now, I know you're going to say to me, but I don't use ginger that fast. Well, ginger's a keeper. You don't have to use it all at once. It stores really well. And this is critically important. Do not put this beautiful hand of ginger in plastic. You will destroy your ginger. Do not bag it up in plastic. Do not put it in a plastic bag in your fridge, because the ginger will sweat and rot on the inside of the plastic and will not have the lifespan that it should have in your refrigerator. Just put this loose in your refrigerator drawer and it will last for months. Now, it may start to shrivel up and dry, but you can trim off any part that doesn't work. Ginger also freezes, but I find that because it lasts so well in my vegetable drawer, it never gets to the freezer. And so then you buy your hand of ginger, and you have this nice chunk of ginger. What do you do with it? Well, I want to show you my ginger peeler, and I usually just use just a regular spoon to do it. But I forgot to bring a spoon with me, so I went over to the cafe and I got a plastic fork. And all you have to do is you just take that, and that's all you need to do to peel the ginger. And the reason you don't want to use a knife or a vegetable peeler is because you will take off too much of the ginger. What using a spoon does is it just takes off that very outer layer of skin and exposes the nice juicy flesh there. So if you do that with your little knob of ginger, you now want to grate it. And as much as I love the microplane zester for Parmesan cheese, it's terrible on ginger. And it's terrible on ginger because ginger has all these fibers. So this is a very old-fashioned tool. This is a porcelain plate with a lot of teeth on it. And what happens is that you take your knob of ginger and you grate it on these porcelain teeth. And so you can grate the juice and kind of the puree, and it's collecting in my little bit right there. As I continue to grate it down, and no, you're not going to hurt yourself on these porcelain teeth, but you get this wonderful puree of ginger, and what you don't get are all those fibers, because the fibers just don't add anything to the food. It sort of distracts to have all those fibers in your dish. What you'd rather have is just this fabulous puree of the ginger, which if you keep grating will keep collecting in both of that. And so then you can add this fresh ginger taste to both to your dish that you're making when you do the ginger. However, I have a cautionary bit, and I think because we eat so much ginger in our desserts, we forget that ginger is spicy. It's got some heat to it, and I always recommend not fully peeling the knob of ginger, but to keep that skin where your hands are, because when you touch the juice, it's almost like touching a chili pepper. If you keep grating it, your hand will feel a little burn from the spiciness of the ginger, because it does have some heat to it and gives it that. I mean, it's not a burn like a chili pepper burn, but you'll feel it. So you might as well protect yourself by keeping the skin on it. Now, in the earlier class today, see, by coming later, you actually get the benefit of all the questions asked earlier. I had two gentlemen in the class who were really, I might say they were kind of heckling me. They were kind of adamant that you have to you want to eat the skin of the ginger. I mean, to my mind, the skin does not add anything. The skin just detracts from the flavor. I would rather peel the ginger. I think they said that there were more nutrients in the skin, but you know, I'm a cook. Let's just go with the flavor. The skin, no skin in that. No skin in that game on anything like that. But ginger can be a lot of fun to use and a lot of interesting flavors to it. You know, one of the things, you know, in the fall now in the United States, we are overloaded with pumpkin spice lattes. And now to my mind, when I make pumpkin pie, I've got 1 teaspoon cinnamon, ½ teaspoon ginger, ¼ teaspoon nutmeg in it. Well, Starbucks has decided that they just do cinnamon, and I think it's just cinnamon and nutmeg, and they skip the ginger. So I think they're missing out on the true pumpkin spice that has overtaken us in the fall, because they don't have this essential taste of ginger in it. And so I think you're all better off making your own pumpkin spice blend to put in your latte rather than using the Starbucks, the faux Starbucks version. Although I did think it was funny that they got accused of not being true to the public because there was no pumpkin in pumpkin spice. So now they've added pumpkin to it, but it should have been pumpkin pie spice, because that's really the flavor. But it does point out how wonderful that those blends of warm spices go so well with the whole squash family, butternut, pumpkin, all of those spices. It also goes really well with things like carrots. Gingered carrots are really good, you know, just a number of different ways to do with it. So I want to give you all an idea of how to, I want a goal to leave here today with what are you going to do with this nice little ginger. And what I recommend is that buy a big hand of ginger, you know, put it in your fridge, not in plastic. You can grate it up on a grater, or you can do it the way the Chinese like to use what's called a vegetable cleaver. And the reason why they like the vegetable cleaver is because they can make very thin slices of the ginger root, and then they can take this wide blade and smash it, and then by smashing it, they pulverize it. And then they can, like that, there you go, doesn't that sound good? And then when you mince it up, it makes the fibers of the ginger somewhat disappear by really pounding it. If you're going to just use the ginger without the grating, it does, the fibers will taste better if you grind it up very finely. So get your hand of ginger. And if you have a favorite family recipe for a gingerbread or a ginger cookie or a ginger cake, instead of using the powdered ginger, use fresh ginger. in place of it. So you get really the punch of ginger, so it can be a very bright taste. Now the rule of thumb on fresh versus dried is 3 times. So you would use 3, if your recipe calls for a teaspoon of powdered ginger, you would use 3 teaspoons of fresh ginger in the recipe. And that's true across the board of oregano or any other herb. It's usually three times fresh because the dried is dehydrated and more intense in the taste. So take one of your old-fashioned family recipes, try it with fresh ginger rather than powdered ginger, and then also try making one of the Asian, Indian, or Caribbean recipes that have a heavy fresh ginger use. And of course, to do that, you're going to need fresh ginger and fresh garlic. I'm always the fresh garlic proponent, if you know anything about me. Fresh garlic available at the end of June. But to combine the ginger and garlic together and have it fresh rather than the bottled version, so you can really get the heat, the spice, the punch of the ginger, and enjoy this spice that that really is more ubiquitous than you've ever thought about. You're eating more ginger than you know. A lot of people claim or say or have had the effect that ginger is very helpful for their physical body. There's a lot of literature that ginger helps with nausea and inflammation. I am not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I know that some people find that ginger has all kinds of health benefits, and I know that the Chinese, in Chinese medicine they say that. I do know that fresh ginger can interfere with some pharmaceuticals, so you do want to be very careful on some of your pharmaceuticals if you take too much ginger. But a wonderful way to deal with fresh ginger, you have your little bits of ginger, is to steep it in hot water and make a ginger tea out of it. And mix that with a little bit of honey can feel very refreshing and also may soothe your upset stomach as ginger is supposed to do. But I thank you all for coming and listening to me today, and I'd be happy to take any questions from you all. Yes, right there in front.
Smoothie with pineapple, coconut milk, and mango, and I do ginger and turmeric for the hand.
And do you do fresh ginger?
Well, I do the squeeze kind that
So what this lady is suggesting is you make your morning smoothie with ginger. You take all your fruits. Pineapple, mango, and orange is what she does, and then she puts ginger into her smoothie. And ginger's a great flavor like that. I think ginger blends so well with fruit. You can probably add ginger to more things than you anticipate. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You almost answered the question. If we've always heard ginger is so good for the stomach, but it's so hot and spicy, where does it change? Where does it?
So the question is, ginger's hot and spicy. Why is it good for upset stomachs? I wouldn't, ginger is not hot and spicy the way a chili pepper is hot and spicy. But it does have a zing to it. And whatever the other properties of ginger are, it never upsets you like a chili pepper might if you're sensitive on that. Ginger has a more soothing quality to it. And chemically, I'm not sure what the property that it has, but there's certainly a lot of people who do feel it calms their nausea. Yes,
Not for nausea, but every once in a while you kind of eat spicy foods or something and will burn it. I carry ginger in my apartment, and they really do work.
So this lady suggests ginger mitts when you feel. I didn't see a ginger mince when I went to the store to find all these ginger products. I didn't see a mint made of ginger, but I'm sure that exists. Trader Joe's has ginger mints. But if you eat too much spicy food, the best thing you should have is a glass of milk. That will smooth everything out. All right. How about some more questions? Yes, ma'am.
In your opinion, what are the
My question for me is what is the best ginger beer? Do you mean alcoholic or non-alcoholic? Well, I'm afraid I haven't been an aficionado of a ginger beer. Do you have a ginger beer to recommend?
I've tried quite a few, but I just...
A party at this woman's house. Tell me, I'm sorry, you go
I
ahead.
would just like to try something new and that I haven't done before.
What?
There's a very, very popular Caribbean beer called Hatway.
How do you spell that?
I think it's Hatauy, maybe? And
Hatauy, Hutway?
Hatway.
Is that Jamaican?
I actually think it might be
Cuban?
Cuban, but it might be
And it's an alcoholic ginger beer?
But it might be made in Jamaica. It's definitely, it's just, just a normal straight
Mm-hmm.
alcoholic beer, but it's ginger-based.
Well, I've not done the ginger beers. I've stuck more to ginger ale or the non-alcoholic ginger beers. They're kind of where they have a real ginger snap to them and makes that kind of fun. So now, what other questions do we have? Okay, go ahead, Jane.
I was just gonna say, I think they make a ginger Altoid,
Oh, the Altoid Tins does a ginger version.
yeah, ginger,
They're too strong for me.
yeah, but they make them,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's Hateuey, and it is Cuban.
Okay, we're expanding our ginger beer options. Who else has some more questions about ginger? Yes, in the back.
So I buy ginger and I wash them and and put it. And so if the recipe calls for wanting ginger, I just heat it up. If these are easy, also I can just put it under the water for a few seconds. And then use the microfiber. Just that 1 inch that you got.
So are you grating the ginger while it's still frozen, semi-frozen? So there's a recommendation on keeping ginger, which this lady stores it in the freezer, and then she grates it semi-frozen, and she finds that grates really well. The ginger will keep forever in the freezer. Well, there's some people I know who keep everything forever in their freezer. But thank you for that recommendation. You find the fibers disappear when they're frozen?
When you grate it, micrograte.
Mhm. She grates it on the microplane grater. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Where would we get that plate that you got with
I am so happy you asked that question. Be sure to give me your address so I can send you the check. So I have a store called Kitchen Conservatory on Clayton Road in Clayton. We sell 6,000 essential kitchen tools, including the porcelain ginger grater, so that you can grate. And we have microplanes too, so that you can grate fresh ginger and feel very Chinese while you're doing it. But it's a great way to do it. And thank you for my shameless plug. Yes, in the back. The question is, does this plate work for garlic? No, it doesn't. I don't find it's a good one because the garlic cloves tend to be smaller and harder to do it. For garlic, I recommend either using a garlic press or just a chef's knife to chop it up. I think the plate doesn't. We always say at Kitchen Conservatory that every food deserves to have its own tool. We have our ginger tools. But I mean, look what I peel it with. Not making you buy the plastic knife to peel the ginger with. Yes, sir.
If you're going to store your fresh ginger and you peel off a little bit, grate it on that wonderful grater press, when you store the leftovers, you don't do anything to the open end, you just put it in the vegetable drawer open?
Yeah, the question is, do I do anything to this open end of ginger? I would just, now this is kind of too small for me to save, but if you imagine this, if I had that open end, I would, you see this stringy bit, I would take I would just sort of reface it and get rid of the strings. There's no reason to store that. But this exposed end, just like what you see on here, it'll dry off. And so then I will peel it again the next time I'm doing it. But I find that if I lose a little bit on the edge, it's all right. It's just that surface area that peels off. The ginger's still nice and fresh on the inside. So no reason to cover that. Yes, sir?
Do you have any ginger cooking classes coming up?
The question is, do I have any ginger cooking classes coming up? Well, what we learned today is that ginger is ubiquitous and in everything. And so I do a lot of cooking classes that involve a lot of ginger. So just running through some of the classes that I personally teach, we have a stir-fry class where we make a whole series of Chinese stir-fries. I think there's ginger in every single one of them. We do Thai curry classes that involve the ginger. We also do Chinese dumpling classes, and in the Chinese dumplings, the ginger is in the various sauces like plum sauce, or in the stir fries or rolled up in things. And then we do a bao class. Bao are those little fluffy buns that are filled with the pork. And so there's ginger in there with the pork filling on that. And of course, every South Asian class we do involves ginger. And then just to take it back to North America, at the end of May, I always do my ribs class, where we do ribs every which way on the smoker. And of course, we make barbecue sauce, so there's the ginger again. So I think I'd be hard-pressed to come up with a class where we don't have ginger in them, just kind of going through. Well, I can't. Our Italian pasta classes have no ginger. I don't know why the Italians are anti-ginger, because they don't grow it there. They don't. Maybe Bruce can talk about why the Mediterranean sort of rejected ginger. He's got that great book about herbs on the Mediterranean. There's not a single mention of ginger in it. So it never impacted into the Mediterranean. But it's all over the rest of the world, and to great effect. Any other last comments or questions from anybody? Well, I thank you all very much for joining me on this Ginger Day. Thank you.